Welcome to the Aviation Sales and Marketing Executive Brief, and today we are talking about, this is another Phase 2 activity, and this is infiltrating large organizations or handling large transactions. So I'm Paula Williams.
And I'm John Williams.
And we are
ABCI.
And our mission is
to help you guys sell more products and services in the aviation industry.
Exactly. Now, there's a lot of our clients and others who start with, fairly small to medium-sized companies. There's a lot of small to medium-sized companies in the aviation industry. But then something happens and they come to the attention of a large organization, which is a fabulous thing to have happen, but it is not as simple as it may seem. When you get a call from someone at a large organization saying, we're interested in your product, and we'd like some information. We just want to give you an idea of what you are in for and how you can make your chances better at succeeding at landing that large project. Sometimes you look at that and you go, wow, that could be our, one transaction here could be worth a full year of transactions and other things. But you need to keep in mind that the size of the transaction, as the size of the transaction goes up, the speed of the sales process goes down. So, just because you get a call from a large organization today, expect to have a very, very long Phase 2 in your sales and marketing process.
And even after you've landed the prospect, you still have to have enough resources to take care of all your previous clients, because if you rely on them and they go away, then you're going to be in trouble.
Exactly. So this is a marathon. This is not a sprint when you're getting involved with a large organization. So, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. And also don't count on being paid right away, even after the deal consummates. Most of those large organizations have a very long pay cycle as well. So the other thing that we want to talk about is the sales process itself. You're going to be dealing with a lot more chairs around the table in your sales presentations, and a lot more brains in the room when you are making your arguments, when you're putting together your marketing materials. You want to make sure that you are considering everyone, because everybody comes to this table from a different perspective. And it's not where you're working with, you may be used to having coffee with someone and doing things fairly informally, where the owner of the company can make all the decisions and also has the technical knowledge and everything else. In this situation, you're going to have those skills separated into multiple bodies and multiple personalities as well. Right, so here's a scenario of what could happen. Let's say that a project manager at a large organization says, wow, we'd really like some of your widgets. I think that would work really well for this project that I'm doing. That's pretty cool. So he calls you and says, can you send me some information? You say, you send him some technical specifications or some marketing materials. He says, this is great. I'm going to share these with my boss, and then we'll take this the next step. So he shares them with his boss. So the original project manager and the boss decide this is pretty cool. So they talk to the project control manager. You may or may not know that this conversation is expanding. They may bring you into that conversation and ask more questions, or they may just use the materials you've already given them. And if they don't have enough information in them, this project control manager is going to say, well, this looks like a lightweight, this looks like a small company, we don't want to have anything to do with this. So even if it's a fairly informal discussion with this project manager, you don't know where the conversation is going and when they're going to tag you again to provide more information. So let's say he likes it. He goes to his boss says yes. They go to the QA guy and say, this is great. Let's get this guy in here and have him do a formal presentation, and let's bring in the QA manager, or the head of the QA department. So far, so good. But then they say, you know what, we're going to need to get approval from somebody in engineering to make sure this is really going to work with all the other pieces we have going on here. So that's great. And the engineering guy says, we need somebody from safety to sign off on this. And this may be 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 more phone calls, meetings, and interactions. And then, the safety guy signs off, and then you go to the procurement people, and they're going to want a whole different set of information, including pricing, possibly some finance considerations, other kinds of things, tax documentation that you may or may not have, other types of certifications that you may or may not have. They're going to go to the procurement manager and the head of the procurement department, who may add additional requirements. And then, if all goes well, you end up in the office of the general manager. Either you or your paperwork ends up in the office of the general manager. And any of these people at any time could pull the trolley cord and say, nope, I don't like this, end of story, and you're done.
And you may never even know who or why.
Exactly. So, that's a total of 12 people that you need to be communicating very well with, and you may not even know that you're communicating with. So I would say, with any piece of information that you hand these people, make sure that you are communicating, I have more information about the following topics that I can provide to you. Make sure that you loop me back in if you need anything like that. So let's talk first about this first guy, your project manager, who first brought you into the room or invited you to the party. How can you best improve your chances of success with this whole process from the very beginning? The first thing that you need to do is understand that this person is kind of putting his job on the line by advocating your product or service. So you want to do everything that you can for this person to make him look good. So that person who initially invited you is the hero of the story. So, if there is good things that can be said, you want to make sure that you say them about this person. And if there are any misunderstandings or anything else, you want to make sure you take the blame for that, not throw your hero under the bus. Because if you make him look bad, they will never do business with you again. And this person in particular is not going to pursue this very hefty process of trying to get your product in the door. You have to understand what he's putting on the line here for you. All right, so let's talk about some specific techniques of what you can do if you want to infiltrate a large organization. So I picked a large one in the aviation industry just to kind of use this as an example. Let's say you had something that you wanted to sell to Boeing. How would you go about that even? One of the first things that you will want to do is to get as much information about the company as you can, using all kinds of resources. And, one of those resources can be LinkedIn, which is a very good social media platform. And one of the things that LinkedIn does is it tells you how you are connected to in this organization and who those people are connected to and so on. So you may already know people that you didn't realize were working at Boeing. They may have moved on, since you went to school with them or, had another job with them or whatever. So you want to make sure that you understand how you are connected to that company. And one thing you can do is up in this upper right-hand corner of LinkedIn, you can see how you're connected, and then you can click the See All button, and it will give you the details of who you're connected to and how you're connected. And you can see, like, the green links underneath each person. You can see who your shared connections are. So you can get a pretty good picture of how connected you are in this company already. And of course, you'll want to expand that network so that all of these folks will at least have heard of you, as much as is natural and as much as is necessary for the project that you're doing. Right. So once you get past that, another thing that you can do is sometimes it'll be a huge list and you'll want to narrow it down. So you can use some of these filtering criteria in LinkedIn. If you go to your upper left-hand corner of the screen that we were just looking at, you can say, here's all the people at Boeing. I want to look only at, my first and second degree connections. I want to look only within the United States. I want to look only within a certain industry, any of those kinds of things. And I also want to look for people who went to my university, if you wanted to get that particular about it, so that you already have something in common with these folks. So, these are filters you can set up. And then when you go back to the the results, it'll tell you at the top of the screen, you can see these filters. This is actually one of the coolest features of LinkedIn. So you can see these are second-degree connections at Boeing in the United States that went to the University of Utah. So these are people that I may have something in common with, or I may know, that I didn't realize were working there. So that really helps us kind of infiltrate the company and build my network. And, these are people that I might feel comfortable calling and saying, I was asked about a particular project at Boeing and I provide this service. And is there anything you can tell me, that would help me out with this? And, of course, you want to make sure that these are warm contacts that you have had dealings with and would have a cup of coffee with if you saw them. So that's good news. So that's LinkedIn. And, it can be a very powerful tool for infiltrating a large organization. And, as we talked about those 12 connections that it takes to make that transaction, you want to have as deep and wide a network within your target company as you possibly can. And I know some of our clients have looked at some of the mailing lists we put together for them, and they say, you know what, we've got 12 newsletters going to Boeing. That seems wasteful. Shouldn't we pare that down to just one? And our response to that is,
no,
absolutely not. We should have as many copies going to Boeing if that's one of your target customers as we possibly can. And as many of those people should be leaving those hopefully in their offices so that people will see them. You really want to make sure that you're visible within the company deep and wide because you don't know who else is going to be involved in a transaction. So here's another thing that you can do. Let's say that, this product that you have is involved with the Boeing 777. You can put together a Google alert. And to get to the Google alerts, you actually go to google.com/alerts. And you can type in any word or phrase that you want. And you can tell it how often you want these alerts, once a day, once a week, whatever, which sources you want, only English, only West Coast if you wanted to do that. You want only the best results, or you want all of the results and you want them delivered to your email or to an RSS feed. And what that does is it makes sure that nothing happens about the Boeing 777 that you don't know about. Because if that's your area of expertise and your project that you're pursuing, you need to know about it as soon as it happens. So that when someone calls you, you're not surprised, you've done the research and you're aware of that. Right, so let's talk about the marketing process and how this all fits together. And of course, infiltrating a large organization, this happens in phase 2 because, they've already contacted you. But what you can do, the specific activities that you can do here is you can use social media to find as many people as you can. We just talked about that with LinkedIn. Other social media are also fair game. They're not quite as easy and so on. You can make sure that anyone that comes from that email address is in your top 10 most wanted and shows up in your VIP list when they send you an email. That's another way of making sure that happens. And whenever they contact you, you want to make sure that they are on your upper tier. If you've got a 2-track system, make sure that you're sending your nicest information package and all of those things to people from that company. And in your initial sales call, you will have already done your research because you've read the Google alerts about that company and so on. In your phase 2, we talked about your printed and mailed newsletters. Do not think it's wasteful to send 12 or 20 copies to the same company with different names on them because you want everybody to have their own copy and you don't want to be chintzy when you're working with these large companies. And then we talked about social media conversations. When you reach out to them, you can do things like, I saw this article about Boeing, is this something that you know about? Lots of things that you can do with social media that are not pushy sales pitches. You want to be helpful and, not necessarily in their way. Right. So direct mail promotions, when you do direct mail into that company, you want to make sure that they're getting your catalogs, things that you do because they may not be aware of the depth or breadth of your service. They only know about the widget that they originally contacted you about. And then formal sales presentations, expect those to be large. And always ask before you go in, who all should be in the room. Let's schedule it when it's convenient for everyone that might need to hear this. So make sure you're emphasizing the point that you understand that there's a lot of people involved in this decision, and make sure that that's worth your time when you schedule that trip, and get your materials together, show up with extra copies in case other people happen to drop in. That's happened to us a lot. You go into a sales presentation thinking it's going to be just 2 or 3 people, and then show up in an enormous conference room with
11 people.
with 11 people, and we only had 4 copies. That will not happen again. So make sure you have a full briefcase when you go to those formal sales presentations. So that's how it fits into the marketing process, and that is basically what we have for infiltrating large organizations. And if you have a specific situation, we'll be happy to talk with you in more detail about it. So other videos within this series were, the phase 2 general credibility and closing. We've talked about qualifying prospects. We will talk about interactive sales presentations. And next week, we're going to have a panel discussion, an educational approach to sales with Dave Santo of Aerostar Training Services and Brad Harris of Dallas Jet International, 2 of the people who are the very best at educating customers in very complex fields. So we're really looking forward to that. So thank you for joining us. We're glad you could spend a few minutes with us today, and we are glad that you are interested in upping your game with larger organizations and larger customers.
You could.